Is MUFON about to reveal the test results on UFO material? That's kind of what it looks like. Let's talk about that and a whole lot more besides. So get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I'll talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like and subscribe and let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Okay, yeah, check this out. MUFON to unveil astonishing UAP material test results at symposium. In what is being called the most important UAP-related presentation MUFON has ever made, MUFON will reveal details about a UAP materials case it recently received from Russia in an exclusive live event on Saturday, July 13th at 8 p.m. The case will be presented both in person and via live stream at MUFON's annual symposium, revealing the story behind the mysterious materials delivered to the home of a Russian UFO investigator with evidence of a cover-up. Tests by Russian labs, later corroborated by MUFON's own U.S. lab, confirm the material is of unknown origin. While virtually any material can be identified by its components from the periodic table, unknown combinations or isotopic ratios can often point to a mysterious origin of samples. In this case, 90% of the sample is made of materials that labs were unable to identify. The story becomes even more compelling as some of the samples sent for additional testing were stolen from an official U.S. post office box shortly after they arrived for retrieval by MUFON investigator Robert Spearing. On top of this, cameras were turned against a wall, inhibiting investigation, although postal workers testified that they delivered the box. This is typical with evidence of this nature. We believe that this material was deliberately taken by someone who could hack into a locked post office box to prevent further testing. Who did this is anybody's guess, said MUFON Media Relations Director Ron James. The evidence that supports this story and others that we will share at the symposium could make this the biggest UFO-related news event of the year. We have physical materials and more evidence of non-human technology. This is huge, guys. I love it. So is MUFON actually going to present UFO materials and also the analyses that they've done on the materials in July? This could potentially be a big deal, guys. Big if true, right? Big if true. I love it. Bring it on, MUFON. In other news, check this out. There was a Peruvian explorer going into some caves, and he found some intriguing skulls that might be the ant people of local legend. Here's the video of him going through the cave. Yeah, it's not in English, but he finds these unusual markings on the cave. Very interesting. And he also finds these skulls. In the video, it's hard to see the skulls really well, but here's a picture of one of the skulls that he found. This very unusual shape here. Now, I'm not familiar enough with skull binding to know if this is a product of skull binding or of something more anomalous. So you skull binding experts in the audience, let me know, is this a common feature of skull binding, or does this suggest something more non-human? For example, the elongated skull people of Paracas. So yeah, let me know what you think. But either way, a really interesting find from an explorer in Peru. Speaking of what's going on south of the border, Ronnie Vernet has been talking about getting evidence on some of the UFO activity there. And he is detailing his ongoing efforts to achieve that. So here he is. He says, "My infrasound station is up and running again. It will be installed deep inside the jungle in the Amazon next week to compose my UFO monitoring data collection there." So yeah, I can't wait to see what Ronnie turns up in the Amazon. Is he going to bring us, evidence of the ET activity there? Or humans with exotic technology, because I don't know what's going on down there. I think it's a mix, right? I don't think the face peelers are non-humans. I think those are probably humans, but there's so much other activity that is probably non-human in origin. So whatever he captures, I can't wait to see what it is. Meanwhile, check this out: visualizing crop circles in 3D. Is this what these shapes are actually meant to represent? Are these 2D versions of complicated 3D or beyond images? I've shared before some of the theories about what crop circles are meant to impart. Maybe even, high technology, free energy and the like and that sort of thing. Of course, there's a lot of people that think they are all man-made. Obviously, some of them are man-made, but I don't think that all of them are. And if not, they probably have some sort of meaning. But let me know what you think crop circles are in the comments below. Meanwhile, check this out. A new update from Jon Stewart talking about the alien interview in more evidence that it may be legit. He says, skeptics. In 96, how in the hell can a 20-something producer know the DNI was a hidden but real agency inside the Navy to insert it in the alien interview hoax film? And he goes on to say that here is the DNI in a military confidential agenda. Explain this. And indeed, the DNI is mentioned right there in this confidential agenda memo. And of course, it's on the alien interview as down at the bottom. So yeah, how would a hoaxer have known of the DNI back in 1996? Great question, John. Meanwhile, from Contact in the Desert, Jay Anderson is questioning Elon Musk's stance on UFOs.
Some people look at him as controlled opposition and not to be trusted, and I don't know. His position on UFOs, in my opinion, is quite suspicious, because he's very dismissive, very, very dismissive. Oh, we've got 6,000 Starlings, we would have seen it by now. So I'm kind of two opinions on that. One, he's read in NDAs, he can't talk about what he knows because, he's a private guy launching, satellites and sensors into space. It's no longer NASA. It's become a private thing. These guys could say something if they wanted to, right? They're not beholden to government. So he might be under an NDA. But there was one thing that I noticed with Elon, and it was when he was doing an interview with Lex Friedman, and they were talking about consciousness. And I was really surprised by what he said. He said, well, if you damage the brain, you damage consciousness. So therefore, it's generated by the brain. And I was like, that, from a guy that's very smart, is a really dumb thing to say. Because if I take a radio and I bash it in with a baseball bat, does that mean that the music can't be, is it generated by the radio? No, it's a signal that's being received by that radio. I've not damaged the signal, I've just damaged the receiver, the renderer, the translator, the amplifier of that signal, right? So I found that to be very dismissive. So I think that it's either that he's read in and that he can't talk, or actually he's just very dismissive of things that aren't in his wheelhouse. So, aliens and woo-woo consciousness, no, nonsense. He's not thinking about it enough, in my opinion. I think that's more likely, but I'm open to the idea that he might actually be, up to his eyeballs in secrecy and stamps of NDAs. But that was a great question, and I agree. Elon Musk.
Yeah, so I thought that was a great response about consciousness, and really a good answer about the metaphor of the broken radio. But does Elon Musk know about UFOs? Is he read into the program? Well, we've had multiple UFOs over SpaceX launches. It's hard to understand how Elon Musk could not be aware of that and question what that is. And he hasn't, to my knowledge, publicly commented on the UFOs over the SpaceX launches. So that seems to be, a cover-up-ish, right? So I suspect that Elon Musk is read into the program. Seems unlikely that he wouldn't be as closely connected with the government as he is now, sending rockets up into space, working with the government to do so. Of course, maybe he's not read in, but, it's certainly suggestive that there are these UFOs over SpaceX launches repeatedly, and he's still denying that the reality of UFOs. Meanwhile, this gentleman appeared on the Jeff Mara podcast, one of my favorite podcasts, where he has a daily near-death experiencers or alien abductee or contactee experiencers come out and talk about their experiences. I love it. It's brilliant stuff. This one was a little bit outside of the box for Jeff. He brought this guy on who is a French gentleman who says he was in the secret space fleet in France, or based out of France. He says France has its own UFO program, its own secret stuff, its own control group. I'm sure the control group is all over, and different countries are doing their different things. So this doesn't surprise me too much that France would have its own program, but its own secret space fleet. That's wild stuff. Obviously you take it with a grain of salt, but very interesting stuff. And I will link to this, and you can listen to his full testimony in the full video. Speaking of ancient discoveries, check this out.
When you hear people, even archaeologists, discussing the Paracas culture is in several aspects, and one of these aspects is the fact that they were subterranean, that this was a largely subterranean culture, and that they were dwelling underground. And that was so intriguing to me when I read that, because you don't really hear that when you hear people, even archaeologists, discussing the Paracas culture. It is not well known that they were subterranean to a large extent. Of course, they had above ground dwellings as well, such as the complexes at the Chongo's necropolis. But as I alluded to, there's some very interesting things going on under that complex.
So there you go, the Paracas culture, which seems to have interacted with non-humans, or at least human hybrids, whatever the elongated skull people were, and maybe are. Who knows where those guys are or where they went to. Maybe they're still around. But yeah, the Paracas culture was largely underground, or was in part underground, people living underground, which is fascinating to consider, of course, because nearby you have Nazca, and you have the beings in Nazca, which do seem, at least in part, to have been underground beings, and might still be underground beings today. There are rumors among the locals of beings coming and going from caves in the area. So who knows what's going on there, but this connection with underground dwelling is really fascinating. And I've always wondered, ever since I got into the Nazca mummies, what the interaction was between those beings and the beings in Paracas, which was not that far away. There had to have been some sort of interaction between the little guys. There's all different shapes and sizes of the Nazca mummies. That's one of the interesting things about them. But what is the interaction between them and the elongated skull people? And also, what is the interaction between those beings and the humans of the time? What we know now, based on good reporting that I've covered, that the Nazca mummies were apparently coexisting with the humans of the time for at least 1,000 years. They were mummified over at least that long. The bodies go back much older than that. But as far as the bodies stored in the necropolis, the citadel, and ritually mummified, there was at least 1,000-year period where that occurred. So there was interaction among the humans and the non-humans of Nazca for at least that long. So what is the interaction between them and the Paracas beings, and also the Paracas beings and the humans of the time? And if the humans were indeed subterranean, or at least some of them lived underground, what does that imply? I would love to know the answers, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Meanwhile, I wanted to give an apology for a video that I made the other day talking about Joe Biden possibly being a clone, and also the reptilian shape-changing overlord theory. It was mainly a video about the reptilians, but my lead-in was the Joe Biden clone story, which is something, we've probably all heard about for years, that Joe Biden might be a clone. It's always been a fun story, and I've never bothered to cover it. But I had been reporting on the reptilian shape-changing overlord story for a couple of days, and then the Elizabeth April video came on, and she was connecting the Joe Biden clone story with the reptilian overlord story. And hey, it seemed like a good idea at the time, guys. But a lot of people had a negative reaction to that, and hey, I totally get it. I realized that one mistake I made was not giving the tablespoon of salt disclaimer. I really should have. because with information like Elizabeth April or Bashar, I haven't seen any corroboration of their contacts or abilities. With some people, like Chris Bledsoe or Peter Maxwell Slattery, their experiences have, in large part, been corroborated. But that's not the case, at least in my experience and my research, with Elizabeth April and Bashar / Daryl Inca and others like that claim to be in contact with non-humans or higher powers or other forms of information. Now, I do think they're worth paying attention to, though, because they do have large followings, they resonate with a lot of people, and they very well could have these sorts of contacts and abilities. Now, even if they do genuinely have contacts, that doesn't mean the information they're getting is accurate. Beings they may be interacting with may be giving them false information. So those are two strikes against them, right? But I still think they're worth listening to with a healthy dose of salt. And I failed to say that in the video. So my bad, I apologize for not giving the tablespoon of salt warning. Now, do I believe that Biden is a clone? No. No, I don't. I don't think there are reptilian shape changers impersonating human leaders worldwide. I don't think that King Charles is a reptilian, but I do think there are secret societies around the world, and some of them historically have probably tried to reach out to various beings. I mean, we know this has happened. So could some of those beings be negative? Some of them are probably very positive. Some of them are probably very negative. And if there are functioning modalities of interacting with the light, for example, the Reiki protocols, could there be functioning modalities of interacting with the dark? Yes, there probably could. Could some of these secret societies have found that out or been instructed in these dark modalities? Totally possible, guys. Again, my mind is open on that. I think that some of that is possible, and some of these stories we're getting about reptilian shape changers, being King Charles, are stories built around a kernel of truth. But what that truth is, guys, I have no clue. If you do, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, I don't believe in the Biden clone story. I don't believe in the reptilian overlord shape-changing story. But you never know. There are definitely shady people around the world doing shady stuff. How shady? We just don't know. Last but not least, this cat took a nap in the wrong place. Don't worry, it all works out for him. He gets rescued. But let me know what you think about this intrepidly napping cat who napped in the wrong place, and everything else covered today in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up. I sure appreciate it. Smash the like button and the subscribe button and the bell to be notified of future videos. Join me on social media, Facebook and Twitter, links below. Love to see you guys there. If you wanted to support Cosmic Road in a bigger way, consider grabbing a coffee mug or a t-shirt in the merch store below, or by becoming a channel member, because channel members are rock stars and I really appreciate you guys' support. Thank you so much. Meanwhile, there are plenty of other videos on the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road, signing out.